Welcome back to RFL. As we come to you, we're just 69 days until the midterms. And today, we get our last major contested primaries of this midterm cycle. Now, voters in Oklahoma, Florida, and Arizona, they're heading to the polls as we speak. The races to watch, they're the primaries for governor in Florida, Republican gubernatorial primaries in Arizona and Oklahoma. And the big one, that's a Republican primary for the Senate in Arizona. Now, that's where you got two extreme Trumpian conservatives, Kelly Ward and Joe Arpaio. They're trailing Martha McSally in polling, all three portraying themselves as the most Trump-like candidate, though Trump hasn't endorsed anyone in the race. And tellingly, all of the three, they're running away from the legacies of the state's two currently elected Republican senators, retiring Jeff Flake, and also from the legacy of the now late John McCain. But while those candidates are all aiming to be Trump clones, here among New York Democrats, all the candidates, they're positioning themselves to be as anti-Trump as possible. Now, we've reached a major week in the build-up to the September 13th primary. The four Democrats running for AG, they debate tonight. They'll debate again next week. Then tomorrow is the debate among the two Democrats running for governor. We will have coverage here on RFL tomorrow night as Andrew will be on site. Now this weekend, Andrew hosts a debate between the two Democrats running for Hudson Valley State Senate seat. It airs on Weekend Newsbreakers on Fios Lower Hudson Valley. As for the primary in the AG race in New York, it's really anyone's guess where this race stands right now. Now, there is a presumed leader. The polling done last month, it shows that Tish James was up 9 points over Sean Patrick Maloney, 10 over Zephyr Teachout. But these polls, like I said, a month old, and it showed almost half of the New York Democrats, they hadn't made up their mind in the race. Plus, they came before the Times' glowing and very early endorsement of Zephyr Teachout in the race. They were also done before Sean Patrick Maloney began dipping into his deep war chest and going on the air with a heartstring ad like this one.
Look at what women are dealing with. Look at what African Americans deal with in this country. Look what immigrants are dealing with now. I feel like there's a group of men led by Donald Trump who have shown up in the front yard and they're getting ready to tear this house apart. And I'm going to stand in the hallway with a baseball bat because I don't have any choice.
You got any clue where this thing's going? I know she's a leader in the clubhouse and she's got the institutional support. Does that matter, though?
It does. Now, for full disclosure, we work with Sean Patrick Maloney in his congressional race. It's not the AG race. But I think that Tish James is in the driver's seat on this, largely because outside of Sean Patrick Maloney, who's been putting up significant ad buys, this primary is going to be decided in New York City. Tish has won citywide. She is the only African American in the race. The base of the Democratic Party is the African American community. Do I think she's run the greatest campaign? No.
Why did she say she doesn't want to be the sheriff of Wall Street?
I think that she was trying not to be thrown into a basket with Eliot Spitzer or with Andrew Cuomo. It was inartful.
It's part of the job.
Yeah, it was the wrong way of explaining, which I think she was trying to explain. I think the real interesting thing for me is Zephyr Teachout and Sean Patrick Maloney. Both's base in this primary is actually the Hudson Valley. So Zephyr Teachout did extraordinarily well in her primary against Andrew Cuomo in the Hudson Valley. Sean Patrick Maloney is a Hudson Valley congressman, which is why you've actually seen the battle between Zephyr and Sean, trying to sort of squeeze one out from that base of the support to compete against Tish. Let's see what the Times endorsement does. Look, I worked on a race once where the candidate got all major newspapers in New York City and came in third. So I'm not sure that the New York Times endorsement means as much of it as it once did. Certainly good for her, but I still would put my money on Tish at this point.
Interesting. All right, let me pivot now to the governor's race here. And you got to think tomorrow night is make or break time for Cynthia Nixon. Nixon well behind in the last set of polls, again done at the end of July, trailing by more than 30 points. And unlike the AG race, only 11% of likely voters said that they were undecided. So what does Nixon have to do tomorrow to keep her slim gubernatorial hopes alive? What mistakes does Cuomo have to avoid? And will Cuomo even mention Nixon by name? After all, Cuomo has spent about a gazillion% of his time here talking about Trump, this election, and the consequences for America than he has about Cynthia Nixon. Dominic, I swear I don't think he's mentioned her name. I really mean that. Do you think tomorrow, he even acknowledges she's in the room, or is he really talking about what he'll do to fight Trump?
He'll acknowledge her when they're on the same stage together, but he basically will run out the clock during this debate, which is what any incumbent will do. He will talk about his accomplishments, and he will paint her, rightfully so, as a political novice that should not be running for governor.
Is her problem, because Teachout was a novice before and she surprised a whole bunch of people, that Teachout was more likable than Cynthia Nixon seems to be? Is it as simple as that or no?
Perhaps, Richard. You know, what has Cynthia Nixon done besides get on the subway and say the subways are bad?
But I would just say, Teachout, again, I don't want to hype that she was more than she was. She lost going away. But still, she presented the left-wing alternative to Cuomo. That was Nixon's play, too. And no one knew who Teachout or her bona fides were. She never held office before. But it just seems that this thing was over before it started.
The difference is Cynthia Nixon is an actress. She's a celebrity. I think throughout the Democratic Party right now, there is no desire to have a novice politician, particularly who sort of has a celebrity background right now, even if you think that they're a great progressive hope after watching what has taken place in Washington. The difference between Cynthia Nixon and Teachout is night and day in terms of just pure acumen and pure understanding of the office
Why
of
couldn't I
government.
have argued Joe Crowley would have made the same argument until all of a sudden we all got stunned with the Cosby?
Well, Joe Crowley also didn't run a really good race and thought he was going to win it. And let's be honest, he lived in Washington and didn't even live in his district. I think that's a whole different ballgame. I think the difference between Cynthia Nixon and Zephyr Teachout is the political climate is different. We've seen what happens with inexperience in an executive level position. I think Cynthia Nixon assumed she would get in this race and progressives would rally around her. And Andrew Cuomo has an actual record. Whether you think he's a SOB or not, the guy has accomplished a lot of progressive things that in any other state in the United States of America, progressives would be raising hell about because they were so happy. So I think she's got a challenge. She hasn't raised enough money to go on TV. I think that it was all a big bubble that's about to burst.
The irony is that if there's any outsider who could perform well in a debate format, you would think it could be a Cynthia Nixon. She's a tremendous actress. She, learned the lines and get through the whole thing. But even a tremendous performance by Nixon tomorrow or in the debate next week, I don't think moves the needle that much. I don't think Nixon can win this primary. She has to bank on Cuomo losing the primary. Right. And we haven't seen that much from Andrew Cuomo's history that suggests he's going to. Final
question for you. Do you think that if Sean Patrick Maloney comes up short, all is forgiven in the House race?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I figured so. All right, good enough. All right, coming up next, yet another sad chapter for my Catholic Church. New reports showing the problems vastly more widespread in one state than originally believed, and now new claims that the Vatican and even Pope Francis knew and did nothing. We're going to get into that next as we'll go out to Rome, where we talk to the bureau chief there for the Washington Post.